Okay, so using Visual Studio Code, you want to start with when you open up the program, you want to, as I said, decide where you want to save your files that you're working with on your computer. So choose a file location to save those files. If you are using PCs, I think even Macs, you'll want to make sure you're instructing your students, like if they download something that's a zip file, they have to extract it out of that zip folder, and store it in a place. You don't just want them to work with everything out of downloads folder or temporary folder or something like that, because then they're never going to find it. But then wherever you're using your files from, you should put all the files in there, and then you want to go to File and Open Folder. So under File, Open Folder, and then choose which folder you're working out of, wherever it happens to be stored. So I'm just going to go to my Documents folder, and I'm going to create a folder right here, and I'll call it CSP. And once you have that folder selected and open, then it's going to show up over here in the yeah, you can see you trust the authors there. It's going to show up over here in your browser within Visual Studio Code, all the files that are in there. Now you can have nested folders in that, but we're going to get to some projects pretty soon where if you have like support files, like image files or something like that, that you've downloaded, they've all got to be in whatever top level folder you've selected in order for your program to find them, right? So, in CSP here, I don't want to make a whole bunch of subfolders and then like be putting my files in there, but then just open my main CSP folder, because it's not going to be able to find those other files. And we'll get to something, I'm not sure if we'll get to this block or not, but we'll get to something soon where we can show you what that does. But then within that folder, then you can create whatever files you need. So if I'm just going to do like a hello file, I'll just create one here and then do my hello world in there. That is now within my folder inside my workspace here. Now I'm getting this error here that says no Python interpreter has been selected. So I want to make sure I have that. If you get that error, you just select interpreter and you can choose. And that should remember that it is, once you're selected for that, you won't have to go back and choose that again. Now, another thing to note, and this is a pretty common thing and an easy debug when you're helping students, you see there's a little circle next to the name of the file up here. So anytime you have a white circle next to the name of the file in the tab, that means you haven't saved the file since you've made a change to it. And it'll be common, I'll walk up to students and they'll say, I keep trying to make the change and I know it's right, but every time I run it, it doesn't work. Well, if you don't save it, it's not going to show those changes. So you want to make sure you save it, and then you'll get rid of that dot and it'll just be the X. And now you know it's saved, and then you can run it. And there's multiple ways to run the files within Visual Studio Code. There's the play button over on the right-hand side, which is the shortcut to run the Python file in terminal. You can right-click and you can choose Run Python File in Terminal as well. There is also something under the Run command where you can run with debugging or run without debugging. We'll get into at a later point some of the debugging tools that are in Visual Studio Code, but don't worry about those right now. That's kind of another level of complexity. Another thing that'll happen is sometimes you or a student will right-click and you'll choose accidentally run, instead of run Python file in terminal, you'll run selection or line in Python terminal. So if I right-click and I choose that, it will still run, but now what happens is, if you look at my output here, I'm now in a Python interactive session. I'm actually running Python down in my terminal. What that means is I can do Python code right here. And notice how the prompt has changed. Instead of saying PSC users and multi-document CSP, it's just 3 greater than symbols, okay? So now if I wanted to, I could run Python commands here, but if I try to press play again, it's going to tell me it's invalid syntax, because what this play command is doing is it's just saying, we'll run this file down in the terminal. And in my terminal right now, I'm in a Python interactive session. So I just can't, it doesn't work the same way, right? So if you get that invalid syntax when they're just trying to run the file, it might be that they've accidentally dropped into a Python session. So you can just get rid of that by dropping out of that. Actually, what you have to do is sometimes there's a little trash can. I'm not sure where the trash can is for mine. But I can just do Python. I can kill this terminal. Let's see if there's another. And that will kill that terminal. Then if I run it again, it'll open up a new terminal to run. Another issue that will sometimes happen, and this is something you want to test with your computers, is if your group policies on your computers lock out access to the terminal altogether on the computers. So this little PS in the front here, that stands for PowerShell. That's a Windows terminal thing. If I would just run PowerShell on a computer, that would open up this thing. It's kind of like the command prompt. It's kind of like the new version of the command prompt. If that's blocked from your students' accounts on the computers, they're going to have trouble working with Visual Studio Code. So that's just something that you're going to have to work with your IT department on to make sure that they can run those things within the computers that they're using.